Wild and fresh. That's a really big ask.
Can you please? Can you?
Steve.
What? Steve what? Steve
Get
what?
that away
Say it on the mic. I dare you. You gonna threaten me?
I cannot stand you.
I don't know. I'm pretty likable. That's not true.
What's the deal?
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 Yo, what's the deal?
What's the deal?
What's the deal?
Hey, what's the deal?
What's good, everybody? I'm Steve Discourse.
What up, y'all? It's your girl, Jay Calli.
Back again with another episode of What's the Deal? A lot to cover. Of course, one of the biggest stories that just dropped yesterday on Friday. The Mueller report is completed. It's been submitted. So we're going to tell you how to prepare for that.
Oh, Lord. Also in Indiana, they're doing teacher emergency shootout drills. Let's talk about how crazy that is. I'll get into it later.
On the headlines, alert, Trump may have a plan to solve the college debt crisis.
I, for some reason, just really don't believe that. The EMTs are out here wilding now. We can add them to the list of people tripping with the police. Oh, God.
A lawmaker in Maine says that providing tampons and other feminine products to female prisoners would turn it into a country club.
And we are now moving away from whitewashing to Asian washing, with an Asian lady being cast in a movie role as a white person.
Okay, all right, you know what I'm going to say. We got to just start with that because all I'm asking is, huh?
Okay, yeah. So you guys might have heard of the movie Crazy Rich Asians. That's not the movie that I'm about to talk about, but the actress is from that movie. Her name is Gemma Chan. She is a very kind of popular Asian actress now. She's really, really beautiful. A lot of people love her, but she was cast in a movie called Mary Queen of Scots, and the white people were pissed off because she was actually cast to play the role of Bess of Hardwick, and Bess of Hardwick is a white person, and Gemma Chan is Chinese. So they're like...
The horror.
Right. So they were like, how dare you take this role in taking the role of a white woman? You're not white, and it's not historically accurate. It's not accurately depicting something that actually took place, and blah, 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 blah. And she was like, first of all, white people do this all the time. All the time. I'm a woman of color. There are not a lot of roles for me, and it's not fair that with the limited amount of roles that I'm even being offered, I can only play my own race while y'all dancing around playing whoever you want. Like, no, it's not going to happen like that. And then she talked about how the fact that, like, there's been Asian movies where white people have been cast to play us with, like, tape on their eyes and, like, darkening their skin. John Wayne played Genghis Khan. Why can't I play Bess of Hardwick? And then she talked about, like, come on, it's 2019. We got shows out there like #1 hits like Hamilton. You got a Puerto Rican guy playing Alexander Hamilton. You got a black man playing George Washington. It's time that people just get with the program and say, you depict this role as an excellent actor or actress. We're not going to be tripping about race. Like,
right.
Especially not when it's been happening all the time from white people.
Yeah, I mean, to some extent, it's like, look, the story is the story. And if we know the characters, unless maybe in a situation where the race or the physical appearance really is crucial to the plot and the action, like, whatever, step back. Who cares, really, right? And I mean, I know everybody was mad when, a couple of years ago when Gods of Egypt came out, and it was like
there were no black people in the
white,
movie except for the slaves.
So, and then also particularly like when you talk about like movies focused on the United States historically, like there's no stories hardly to tell other than stories about white people because everybody else was enslaved or like discriminated against and everything. So the action was not happening with non-whites, right? So it's like the roles because of that are now limited. And so I like that example of Hamilton. It's like, look, as long as the story and action is rolling, it doesn't really matter what you're looking like.
I don't know if I agree with that or not yet because it's a brand new thought, and I'm like, do we want to play with race in this way? I don't know, but do I think that we should be making it a big deal when an Asian actress plays a white person? I mean, not when we got white actresses playing Asians all the time. Scarlett Johansson, we're looking at you. Anyway, yeah, that's really the news. It's just kind of crazy the world that we're living in where we're still talking about this, but
Yeah,
I'm all for black people playing white people in movies. That would make my heart smile from the inside out.
All right, so if you want to play John Adams or George Washington, Jay Calli might be your casting director.
Hey, I'm over here. I'm willing and I'm ready.
All right, so on to the big headline-grabbing news for this week. The number one, the main bombshell. Robert Mueller, special prosecutor, has concluded his investigation into and around and in the orbit and the universe of collusion with Russia in the 2016 election. It's been 22 months. He submitted it officially to the Attorney General, William Barr, who's going to review it. And there's reports even this weekend that he may be ready to advise the House and Senate committees on the findings of this report as early as this weekend. So we haven't seen any update this morning as of recording this as to communication from him. But this is a big moment. Everybody's been waiting. A lot of people have been frustrated by the pace of this. They wanted Trump essentially to be arrested and locked up, 2 years ago, like at the beginning of this investigation. And it has been super effective if you want to view it that way. There's been, I think, over 30 convictions, including, 12 Russian nationals who were, alleged or indicted, I should say, of different suspicious behavior. We have a campaign chairman was convicted. We had his Trump's personal lawyer convicted. A lot of people in orbit of Trump's world, not too many people on the very innermost circle from his family and who have been long-term tied to the administration. So to me, I just want to prepare everybody for the fact that when this report comes out, if it's public or whether, the public statements made by the lawmakers, if these aren't the silver bullets that we wanted to see, we can't let ourselves get too disappointed, right? I think when this investigation popped off, it was like, I like that word. It was like a silver bullet. There was so much concern for the type of person Trump is and the behavior and the mentality he demonstrates publicly. And with insulting people like John McCain, who's dead, and still insulting the man after his death. Like, we've had so many concerns about how he's going to behave himself in office and just publicly that we were hoping for this silver bullet to kind of wipe away this dark moment in our history or something like that. And it might not be that. Like, there's a lot of circumstance that makes it look like, oh, that's a done deal. He's going to go to jail. Maybe, maybe not. We don't know. But what we do know is Mueller's investigation didn't indict Trump. It didn't seek to put him on the stand to get actual testimony on the record from him. That's not to say something can't come on down the line, but it's going to have to come through Congress. And so anything that's going to happen directly to Trump is going to now still be a long time coming, because essentially the Mueller investigation gives them now evidence and kind of ammunition in a way to say, okay, we have a case for impeachment or for some other kind of, I don't know, maybe criminal proceedings or something like that. So just be prepared. It's not going to be the end of the world if it's not the end of the world.
I have two questions.
Okay.
So my first question is, how long have we been investigating Mueller? I feel like we've been talking about this for literally ever.
How long has Mueller been investigating?
Yeah.
22 months.
That's 2 years.
Yeah.
That's 2 years. And my second question is really from you, what do you think is going to happen? Because it sounds like you're trying to set us up to be let down. I'm trying to soften the blow if there's a letdown. What do you think is going to happen? I think, I don't like making these predictions too much. Oh, okay. But what I will say is what could happen at the most is an impeachment or maybe some kind of indictment for criminal behavior from Trump. But those things, if they happen, they're going to be long, drawn out political processes. There's going to be debate. It's going to be messy because Congress and the House or the Senate is going to have to find a way to kind of come to terms, and we're going to have to settle it in a real messy political way, right? It's not Mueller indicting Trump. It's not criminal charges being brought from the investigation. It's now going to say, look, you got a roadmap of all his
connections, all his behaviors, and it's up to Congress, which is extremely messy, and there's a wide range of views and where you fall on this.
Yeah.
All that's going to have to come together into a resolution of what's actually going to happen. So if there's evidence there that's damning, Democrats, are going to be on board to damn him. But Republicans will be saying, nah, it's really not incriminating the way you say it is. So if something happens, it's going to be long and messy. So I don't think this is actually really the conclusion of anything, because Republicans are going to say, boom, he's vindicated. Trump is going to say, I'm vindicated. And Democrats are going to be scratching tooth and nail into that report to find whatever they can to do what they can with. So this is really not the end of anything, to be honest with you. It's kind of it's a new chapter.
Yeah, well, yeah, not the beginning, but we're about to just jump into something new and something different. I don't know how this is going to unfold. I be trying to follow and keep up with this story, but it's been taking us on a little bit of a roller coaster. So anyway.
So with that said, yeah, what do you got in Indiana?
Listen, I don't know what the deal is with Indiana, because this is in the middle of America and I always expect craziness, but apparently they out there doing live action shooting drills in elementary schools. I don't know if it's only happening in elementary schools, but the story I'm talking about today took place at Meadow Lawn Elementary School in Indiana. Basically, y'all, what happened is the police came out to the school and they're like, we need the teachers to be prepared for if an active shooter is ever in the schools, because this has been happening more and more frequently, and we just want to know that they need to be prepared to protect these kids and fight back. So we can start running these drills, right? So they don't tell the teachers what's happening because they want it to be kind of alarming like it would be in real life. So they're like...
Wait, the teachers don't know there's going to be a drill?
No, the teachers know. There have been instances where the teachers didn't even know there was going to be a drill. In this particular story, they knew there was going to be a drill, but they didn't know what it entailed. Oh. The reason why that's important is because it got crazy. Okay, so they call the teachers into this room, this back room, 4 at a time, and all the other teachers are just standing outside, not having no idea what's going on inside the room. So they call them in, and they're like, kneel down on the wall. They line them up on the wall, make them get in execution position with their backs turned, and they just start firing at them with pellet guns, blasting these teachers in the back of their head, neck, and shoulder and back regions.
Wow.
With airsoft bullets. Unexpected. Imagine having your back turned, your kneel down execution, and someone just starts shooting you. Just airsoft makes it sound like it doesn't hurt. No, that hurts. And some of those teachers walked away with injuries. Like they had welts, they had bruising, they had were even bleeding after being shot, and they walked away traumatized. Like, we didn't know what was going to happen. They just started shooting us, and the teachers in the hallway are like, why are they screaming? They're screaming. And then when they get done with the exercise, they send them out the back door and they're like, don't tell anybody about what happened in here.
What?
Yeah. Because they want it to be alarming for everybody. They don't want anybody to be able to mentally prepare to be shot like that. And they're like, this is what happens when you don't fight back. This is what happens when you're not prepared for this. We need to get ourselves ready. And it's like some military craziness. Like, I don't know what the purpose is, if they want these teachers to strap up. It seems like that's what they want, but it's like, if you don't do anything, this is how it all ends for you. And it's just scary and crazy, and that's not how any school shootings have actually taken place.
What's the official word on, the justification of this tactic? Did they have
they didn't.
The company that they hired?
It was the police force.
It was the police
force.
The
actual police were coming into the schools.
What do we know about what they thought this was going to do?
They thought that it was going to kind of alarm them, and it was used as a fear tactic for real, which is what the conclusion was, to alarm them and shock them into action, to be like, we can't let this happen. We're now emboldened to get out there and fight back, because we're not just going to take it kneeling and just die. But what ended up happening was, of course, everybody complained. All the teachers were like, this is nuts. I'm bleeding out the back of my neck. Like, yo, this can't happen. And so now they can't do it anymore. They, first of all, can't do pop-ups.
That's good.
And they also are no longer allowed to use airsoft guns to shoot teachers of elementary school children.
I mean, obviously they're just airsoft. So
no.
But isn't that assault or battery or something? Like, you can't just...
No, because they signed up for the active shooting drills.
Wow.
I just don't think they realized.
So they didn't know they were open to physical harm
get shot.
and all that.
Yeah, no.
That's
I mean,
nuts.
I feel like if you're going to harm someone,
Look,
they should be signing a waiver. I don't know. You just can't be shooting people out the blue. Like, I don't like even somebody tapping me on my shoulder from the back without me knowing. I can imagine being blasted.
So here's my initial reaction to that is, if that's the whole idea, is to just traumatize them, scare them, amp them up to be on edge, like ready at a moment's notice, I'm just imagining the number of ways that this can go wrong. For the same reason when we've talked about in the past on this show, arming teachers. How many ways can this go wrong? The teacher now on edge because they were shot with airsoft unexpectedly in this weird hostage situation that they didn't know was going to come, and now they're ready to be provoked or something, and they go over the line, maybe in disciplining a student. Maybe something happens that's very intense. 2 students fight, or a student gets alarmed and angry and starts acting out, and now the teacher here is like, yeah, I'm ready to act, and they step over the line. And I don't know how or what specifically, but that's what I think. I mean, this to me sounds like there was no real thought given to the mental state and the mindset that you have to be in to assess situations like this and be effective in responding to them.
Right.
And it just sounds like they're going to be now emotionally triggered as to more likely of what it's like to be in that situation, but not necessarily better prepared.
They are nothing now but upset and battered. They're not prepared. They are alarmed, but not alarmed into action, just alarmed into more fear. It's just not effective. It's not an effective way to train anyone. It doesn't serve children. First of all, let's just back up here. Let's not lose sight of the purpose. What we're doing here is supposed to be saving and serving children, and what they're doing does neither of those things. So we can talk about how crazy it is, how wild it is, how those teachers got hurt, but now we're not talking about kids anymore, which is actually the biggest problem.
Yeah, and I mean, speaking of that, just yesterday we had news that one of the survivors from the Parkland school shooting committed suicide. It's being reported as a result of the trauma that she was facing. And yeah, man, it just sounds like that this whole fiasco with Indiana, there's a whole lack of thoughtful follow through for the process. And it just sounds, I mean, we've got to, I don't know. I don't even know. I'm kind of just shocked that that's the move. Yeah.
Initially, I was laughing. Like, when I was reading this, I was hysterically laughing because I'm imagining these. When I picture a school teacher in Indiana, I automatically picture like a 40-year-old white lady who's fluffy and like homely being put down on the wall and just blasted. It's not funny. It's sad. But imagery,
it sounds outrageous reading about it. It's
so outrageous that I'm like, what the heck is this? But the more I talk about it, the more I'm like, this is actually just fully sad and fully unfortunate that this is the current state of America, that we've resorted to these type of wild drills to make people feel safe in public. It's sad. It's really sad.
Wow. Well, let's take a break real quick. We got 3 more stories on the docket for today's episode. So everybody stay tuned. We'll be right back.
While we're on this break, we want to remind you, do not forget to share the podcast. Share it to all of your social media platforms, your Facebook, your Instagram, Twitter. Don't forget to use the hashtag What'sTheDealPod whenever you share anything. And like and subscribe the podcast on iTunes, Google Play, wherever you listen. Thanks for spreading the love. You know we appreciate you.
What's good, everybody? Back again, Steve Discourse.
What up, y'all? It's your girl, Jay Calli.
So we got a bit of a kerfluffle happening up in the great state of Maine. And essentially what's going on is they have a bill proposed to require providing menstrual products for female prisoners in the state and county prisons. Mm-hmm. And it's getting some headlines because of really one notable quotable from Republican Congressman Pickett up in Maine, state state representative, and he basically says these prisons are not intended to be a country club, which is what he was equating the effects of passing this bill. That somehow we got a country club atmosphere now in state and county prisons because we're just doling out copious amounts of tampons and what do you need? You get a tampon. Like, and he tried to walk his statement back because that sounded really bad, and you'd think he could be a little more tactful if he didn't mean that getting access to these makes a prison a country club. What he meant was there's already laws in place that require these items to be provided federally, and at the state and county level, they already are provided unlimited resources that the women that they need. Here's the problem. This gentleman is a man.
Yes.
The vocal
problem
lawmakers.
Number one, man.
So the vocal lawmakers proposing and supporting this are women. A lot of the advocates are women, and they're saying no. These women do not have unlimited resources, and they're given finite, numbers of products per period. Right. And once they run out of those, they're fashioning their own products out of clothes or notebook paper and things like that. And on top of that, the products that they are given are poor quality because the prisons are cutting costs, budgets. Right? They just want to get the cheapest thing possible. So that's the A and B, the nitty gritty of the story. Jay Calli, what are your responses?
I'm sitting here and I'm like clenching my jaw and my fist together because I'm so flabbergasted at the sheer buffoonery and at the lies. Like when you said, they're already provided with unlimited resources. I'm like, everybody knows that that's not true. It's maybe men don't know. I don't know if y'all don't keep yourselves current on what's going on with women in prisons or women in life, but no, absolutely not. The women in prisons are given like a extremely small amount of menstrual products that's supposed to last them for a certain period of time. Every prison is different, but let's say in a month, they say you get 12 pads in a month. What? Why? Why are you limiting me? And then when I run out, you would think I would be able to say, hey, I'm out, but it wasn't enough. Can I get re-upped? And it's like, no, you can't get re-upped. That's your supply for the month. So yeah, you got to fucking figure it out on your own. Which is, first of all, let's just talk about how it's inhumane and how it's so degrading to make someone have to stoop to those levels just to be able to like exist. And because it's a problem that only affects women, you don't hear enough people making a fuss about it. Or you hear people, you don't realize like, that's money being spent. Why can't you just use toilet paper? Because it's unsafe and unsanitary. Like, it's not healthy for me to do that. Or the fact that like they also don't even have enough toilet paper to do that. So it's like you have to use wild, random stuff. So no, I'm really angry that anybody would even say we don't want to give them these materials.
So in his defense, in his reasoning for opposing this, is that, A, he says it's a symptom of just micromanaging the state prison system. Yeah. And B, if they want better products or more, they are available in the commissary. To which advocates are saying, okay, well, you don't know, the commissary being like the prison store that's available, that if loved ones or whoever puts money into your account as a prisoner, you can go to the commissary and buy things that you need, right? So advocates are saying, okay, well, you don't know these people's bank account. Like, who are you to assume that they have money now for this? And resources are limited. So what if they need to make a phone call to their families or to their lawyers or buy tampons? Yeah, like exactly. It's as far as micromanaging and the idea of like a country club, like, it's so luxurious that you have all the products you need. I mean, to me, isn't being locked in jail, just physically being in jail, punishment enough? Right. Like, what is going through this, Richard Pickett's mind that not being in jail is just enough, but making sure you're getting by on the bare minimum for your physical health needs is that part of the punishment? Right. It just seems super petty and vindictive, and also probably just completely tone deaf because he's coming from his perspective as a male who maybe he's never literally had to think about these issues in a serious way. So it's just some issue across the street there that he's saying, what? Why? Why is that a problem?
Right. And I'm sure he's never had to think about these issues in that way because, again, he's a man and he probably never asked the woman in his life, hey, what's this like? Or what would you feel if these things got taken away from you or whatever. Why is he talking? Shut up.
Yeah, I mean, he said if the bill were a little bit different or whatever, he would be the first person to sign it. Yet he's got all these reasons why. To me, it's like, yeah, all right, it's micromanagement, but I don't see the harm in doing this other than a concern of micromanagement. And so
there is no harm.
Just let it be.
People that have to say no. Again, shut up. Shut up. You don't know what you're talking about. Just shut up.
I agree. Mr. Richard Pickett, please take a seat. So, from prisons and politicians to EMTs and deputies, what do you got, Jay Calli?
EMTs, you know what? Let me back up. EMTs around the world, thank you for what you do. We know that it's hard work, and you literally save lives every single day. So I'm not going to generalize and say EMTs are out here fucking up. I'm going to say 3 EMTs made a very, very, very big mistake. I'm not even going to mention what the deputies did because, of course, when police mess up, I'm no longer shocked. But they're also in cahoots with some craziness. Paul Tarashuk, a man who needed help, is now dead as a result of being mismanaged by both deputies and EMTs on I-95. Basically, he was found lying butt naked on the top of a tractor trailer pulled off on the side of I-95 in South Carolina, and the police responded to a call to come out and see what's going on. So they get Mr. Tarashuk to come down, and they're asking him questions like, hey, what are you doing? Why are you out here? You know you don't have on any clothes. Like, what's going on? And he's responding. He's talking gibberish. He's like, yeah, blah, blah, blah. There's like nobody knows why he's talking crazy. He's just saying wild stuff that doesn't make any sense. And they're like, hey, what's wrong with you, bruh? Like, it's crazy to hear the way that they were talking to him out the gate. They were just like, yo, what's wrong with you, man? Hey, you got to chill, man. You wilding. Like,
you're a grown man. Act like an adult.
They were like, why you acting like this? Why you doing this? Tell me your name. What's your name? What's your name? What's your name? And eventually he just shuts down entirely. He literally sat down and laid out in the grass and stopped talking. He stopped responding. He has a blank stare on his face. He's not even looking at people. He's kind of looking through them. So they call the EMTs to come and check out to see if he's on some drugs, to see what's wrong with him, blah, blah, blah. He gets up on the ambulance, and there's body cam footage of what's happening inside the ambulance. The EMTs are no better than the deputies. They're like, excuse me, sir, you need to tell me what your name is. Like, stop playing. You need to open your mouth and say something. You need to open your mouth. They were using the same line. Come on, be a grown man. You're a grown man. Let us know what's going on, blah, blah, blah. If the situation escalates, they think that he's just ignoring them. They take the ammonia strips that you're supposed to use to, like, wake up someone who has passed out. You just wave it under their nose, and it's so strong and sharp that it jolts you out of literally being passed out. Mind you, this man is alert. Mind you, they do not wave this under his nose. They take it and they stuff it inside of his nostrils, and he's breathing in this ammonia now. And they're like, we know it burns, but we're not taking it out until you tell us what we need to know. What? Huh? At what point does someone who needs help, you treat them this way? So eventually they kind of just give up on getting any information out of him. They go to some random gas station on the side of the road. They dump him off, and they just leave him there.
The deputy does.
The deputy does this because the EMTs didn't take him to the hospital. They said, do you want to go to the hospital or not? Of course he didn't answer. So they literally just kick him out the truck, and the deputy drops him off at the gas station.
I mean, is that how you treat an unconscious person? Do you want to go to the hospital or not?
He's
is that what they do?
He's not conscious and not aware and not able to respond. And they're like, if this is an act, then it's a damn good act. Who acts this way? It's not an act. You can see that the man is suffering from something. It turns out later that he's suffering from schizoaffective disorder, which is very similar to schizophrenia, but it has a mood disorder component. So he's actually in the middle of a mental breakdown. Here's the kicker. Hours later, they receive a phone call. This man has been hit by a car on the interstate and is dead. And the same people respond, and they're like, oh, we don't know what happened. We tried to get information out of him. He wasn't telling us, and we just didn't know if it was something going on, and blah, blah, blah. You can't explain your way out of this one.
Well, you're telling on yourself when you explain the fact that you met this man, interacted with him, and left him to die on the street.
No, not left him. Drove him somewhere else and dumped him off.
to a closed gas station in the middle of the night.
So then the people who were like, well, when did the hospital discharge him? And they were quiet. And they were like, well, did you ever take him to the hospital? And they were like, well, no, we didn't know what was wrong with him.
I mean, the man was bugged out. He clearly needed help.
He needed help. Right. So they're still employed. They're all currently still employed.
It's nuts. They lost their certification, the EMTs, but they're still employed in, I guess, some kind of supervisory kind of
provisional role.
overwatched role. Which
what does that actually
I don't know
mean?
what that really means, but it sounds wild to us bystanders and laymen.
I'm mad.
It's really nuts because, I mean, just the language that they used, right? Like, if this is an act, it's really good.
Yeah.
So what? So you're really convincing me that you're messed up here, and you might be playing with me, so I'm going to leave you for dead.
First, I'm going to torment you.
Yeah, and torture, right?
Right.
And you got to think the fact of the matter that you say, I know sticking this capsule in your nose is kind of torturous. It's got to be terrible and painful, so just respond. You're not responding at all.
Right.
Isn't that a warning sign? Like, I don't understand how you're trying to get a rise out of someone and you get no response. That right there would be an indication, I would think. I don't think you need professional medical training or psychological training. I don't think you would need anything to say, okay, this man needs help. There's nothing more to say than that. It's just beyond, it's outrageous. It's almost like the other story, how if you were reading this, you'd almost laugh at how unbelievable the response is. A person clearly in need of help, and two differently trained groups of people arrive to help, and both conclude that you are so far beyond normal functioning of a human being that we're going to leave you to your own device.
Yeah.
And he died.
And mind you, without clothes or shoes on, in the middle of the night on the side of the freaking interstate.
If he was coherent and needed help, they probably arrested him for some indecent exposure or something wild like that. So you can't win.
They put shorts on him, but still, like you don't do that. But it begs the question: what type of training? No, again, police, my hope is diminishing rapidly. But for the EMTs, are they not trained on mental health? Are they not trained on people in current states of mental breakdown? Because you're an emergency technician, I would think that you could handle more than, he's not bleeding. Maybe this is beyond my scope of understanding. He is clearly suffering from something mental. Why aren't you trained to be able to say, we need to load up the truck and get this guy over to the psych ward?
And we've seen other cases of police not knowing how to confront people with autism and things like that. And on one hand, I get that that's a gap in the training, maybe. Mm-hmm. But then the question is, where's the empathy? If your job is to protect and serve, and I know people are going to roll their eyes at that, right? But the theory is that both of these groups are supposed to be serving the people. You are here for them. They're not here to follow orders or whatever. So where's the empathy, right? Where is the empathy? And the fact that if this is a trick, it's a real good trick you're playing on us. What kind of person are you where it's your role to be responsible for this person, and rather than take care of them and maybe risk that this person is just playing some prank, you'd rather not get played, so you're going to leave them to their own devices, and possibly what happened is end up dead because he was suffering from something and got hit by a car later because you abandoned him. It's really nuts, and it just, the same with the congressman in Maine. It's a lack of empathy and understanding for what's happening on the other side of this conversation here, right? Is if you have these advocates saying this is what we need, take their word on that. This is not a personal thing that you have personal experience with. I think you got to defer to expertise.
Right.
And have a little bit of empathy and say, okay, well, let's go the extra mile here.
Yeah, like I couldn't even imagine the guilt of the lady that hit him. Like, she feels like it's her fault. She's totally not responsible for this, but she's going to feel guilty for the rest of her life.
Right.
So
yeah, it's really shameful.
It's a crazy story. What you got?
I got one more story.
All right, you look like you're ready.
So there was a lot of facetious, sarcastic social media posts about this story during the week. And I will say I was on board when I heard the news that Trump and Betsy DeVos, Education Secretary Betsy DeVos, have a plan to limit the amount of college and university student loans that people can get.
I'm confused. Well, I didn't even realize that Betsy DeVos had that much control at all.
They want to limit. Well, the law's got to be passed, but she's a secretary, so she can make these proposals and things. So there's a 10-point plan to reform higher education legislation that was passed X amount a while ago. I forget when. Hasn't been amended since 2008. But one of their plans that's been getting a lot of headlines is to limit the amount of loans that students can take out. And everybody said, "Oh, wow, that's smart, right? You want to lower student debt by just letting us borrow less." So there was a lot of people really being sarcastic about it. But but the idea is that this will in part help reduce the rise in tuition because there's just not as much funding available. And there is research, I will say, and I'm going to say this before we keep going in the conversation. This is one of the rare times when looking at this legislation, I might actually think they're on to something positive here.
Uh-oh. Wait a minute.
We've got 4 years of Trump, and I never thought it would happen, but it might be happening. So the idea is that, there's research that shows the correlation between available student aid through FAFSA and a rise in tuition costs.
Really?
And it's not necessarily a cause.
Wait a minute.
But as funds become available, colleges are like, oh, so we can just start ratcheting up, right?
Correlation doesn't necessarily mean causation.
Not necessarily, but we know that these numbers have been ramping up, sometimes 7% a year. That's a lot when you're already talking about tens of thousands of dollars, right? And so this is one of their approaches, one of their tactics in their 10-point plan. And I'll say some of the other things include reworking how income-based repayment can work. And so student loans, if these reforms are passed, student loans will be capped at 12.5% of your income, which still sounds like a hell of a lot of money because a lot of people are struggling as is. So if you're doing pretty good, and you have a high salary, 12.5%, you may have the breathing room. But if you're doing okay, depending on how they determine that income repayment, 12% might still be killing you. But then they're taking 5 years off the amount of time it'll take for loan forgiveness. I think it's 15 years. If you make payments for 15 years, whatever's left will be forgiven. And I believe that's
reasonable.
and I think that's no strings attached.
No, I don't believe
because
it. I just don't trust
because
it.
in the past it was like if you do government service or something like that, then you can get it forgiven. So we've got measures to support returning citizens. Congress should provide targeted federal financial aid to prisoners eligible for release to improve employment outcomes and reduce recidivism. So there's out of this 10-point plan, there's honestly some pretty good ideas in here. You might want to check it out. You know what? Actually, I'll put a link in the episode bio, so you can go right to this PDF. It's like 5 pages long, and there's bullet point. Reorient the accreditation process to focus on student outcomes, and it gives you a whole bunch of stuff. But then it gives you 2 bullet points to really summarize what it's asking for the reform. And I don't know, man. I know there's a lot of people ready to nail me to the wall, but I'm going to keep looking into this, and if I see something really troubling, maybe I'll come back and walk my statements back next week.
No, it's going to be too late.
So, no, it's not going to be too late, all right? Damn it. It looks super promising. And, I mean, I just wanted to put that out there because there was a lot of people going, no, way to go, idiot, limit the amount of loans we can get. And that's going to harm us because we can't get into college as much. But it's all part of this plan, hopefully, to ratchet down. Now, if you really go into the nitty-gritty, somebody with a real in-depth policy wonk experience may say, see, that's not really going to work the way it is. But I'm saying at a surface level summary of my reading of it, like, it all seems pretty legit. So there may be some big reforms to college education and financing.
Let me say this.
On the horizon.
Let me say this. You better be careful, and I better be careful, too, because this the second week that we done had something good to say about the Donald.
Did it? I must have blacked out the memory from last week.
It was either last week or the week before, and I was like, you know what? Donald Trump is a smart man with great business ideas. You don't remember?
I thought that was sarcastic. All right.
Oh, damn. No, I was dead serious.
Whoa.
But we can revisit that later because I'm probably still up on my cross. Listen, be careful because I want people to know, boy, he still ain't with the shits.
No, we're not. But it doesn't mean there can't be little silver linings here and there. So, but we're going to have to revisit that, and anything else we might have to revisit. We got to revisit it. Why? Because that's our time for today.
Hey.
We've covered it all. So, as always, appreciate you tuning in. We're going to be back next week. As always, again, check the link for that 10-point plan, which I'll put in the episode bio description, yada, 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 whatever it is. And so we're signing off. I'm Steve Discourse.
It's your girl, Jay Calli.
That's a deal.
All right, people, thanks so much for tuning in another week. What's the Deal podcast?
You can follow us on social media
at Steve Discourse.
And you can catch Jay Calli.
It's Jay Calli, ITSJAYCALLI.
We got to send a big shout out to Clifford Cartel for composing our theme music. And wherever you listen to this, make sure you subscribe.
Family, subscribe.
Write us a review.
Share the podcast. Subscribe to it wherever you listen.
Share it with your friends, family, your loved ones. Heck, share it with your enemies. We don't care. Just help us spread that word. We truly appreciate it.